Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first event of 2021. My name is Vianney Lubis. I am the head of audience and engagement here at Guerrero Media, which is the publisher of Hispanic Executive, and so thrilled to welcome you all to our event today for what is surely going to be a very fun, a very exciting and dynamic conversation with two incredible leaders, Cedars-Sinai's two highest ranking Latino executives there, but I'll be introducing them momentarily. And before I do that, I do want to take a quick moment to thank the hardworking team at Hispanic Executive for many reasons, but especially for their continued commitment to our Latino business community and for their endless creativity and for their hard work in producing this publication cycle after cycle. So today is a celebration of that. And here at Hispanic Executive, we are committed to bringing together inspiring and successful Latino leaders across industries to share their stories, to learn from each other, and to connect. And we do this proudly in print, digitally, and through events like these. And so today we applaud our healthcare heroes. Our first issue of 2021 is in fact our healthcare issue, which put a spotlight on the many decision makers across the healthcare industry who have responded to their call to serve during this very challenging time, and who are dedicating themselves to supporting patients and coworkers and neighbors all alike. And so you just saw a quick glimpse of this issue. And one thing that we're especially proud of was our first ever artist commissioned cover. And so to tell you a little bit about it, we worked with Carlos Zamora, who is a Cuban-American artist. He's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, the National Law Journal, the Boston Globe, to name a few. And in essence, we wanted to work with him to bring out and sort of capture the importance of the work that these leaders are doing day in and day out, and to showcase their collective commitment to serving their communities. And so a lot of careful thought went into this illustration, but most notably on this cover, you saw a figure sort of carrying the community in their arms with their sleeves rolled up and doing and getting ready to do the work. And so all of these are just tiny details of sort of a symbolism that everyone is coming together to help those in need. And so now we're going to meet two of those very leaders that we were so proud and so honored to showcase in our pages. And today we get to have a conversation with them live. So it's a pleasure to introduce you to Cedar Sinai's Art Ochoa, who is the Senior Vice President of Advancement and Chief Advancement Officer, as well as Andy Ortiz, who is a Senior Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer. And then moderating this conversation today is our very own James Ainscough, who is our Content and Advertising Manager here at Hispanic Executive. And in fact, he helped to bring these leaders' stories to life just some months ago in our pages. So very excited to have you all sort of reunited and for taking the time to be with us. And with that, James, I'll give you the floor and we'll come back to close.
Thank you, Vianney. Hello, Art and Andy. How are you guys?
How are you?
Oh, great. Just want to jump right in to start off with a bit of background on both of you. I guess before we get started, I'd like to take a quick moment just to set the stage for the discussion. We're going to have the opportunity to speak with both of you, Art and Andy, for about 20 minutes. After which we'll turn it over to the audience for some Q&A. So as a reminder, you can use the Ask a Question feature there in Zoom throughout the talk, so you can have an opportunity to ask the questions directly to our speakers. So you guys ready?
Sure.
Awesome. So just to start off with a bit of background on both of you, more specifically, what drew you to the healthcare industry in general, and to Cedar Sinai in particular? So Art, let's start with you and then jump over to Andy.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me here today. It's a great pleasure and privilege. I've always wanted to work in mission-driven organizations, and at the same time, organizations that are complex and that have a wide impact on a community, on a region, and the world beyond it. And so, in that regard, healthcare and health systems, I think, are a natural fit. I also, am deeply interested as an amateur in science and medicine and technology. So for me, and I'm a guy who worked between college and law school. I worked in at a think tank that was really focused around national service, and so it wasn't a question of when I was going to get back to the exempt organization world and mission-driven organization world. It was just it wasn't a question of if; it was really a question of when. And I had a great opportunity to come to Cedars-Sinai, which I knew as a client from practicing law. I knew the brand from the organization at least a little bit from growing up in the greater Los Angeles area. And I had a daughter, my older daughter, who had recently been born at Cedars-Sinai. We had an extraordinary experience there.
Awesome.
So that's how I ended up at Cedars-Sinai.
Very cool.
Right. Can you hear me okay, James?
I can, Andy.
Okay, I'll jump right in. So, and what Art fails to tell you is he just celebrated his 20-year anniversary with Cedars-Sinai. So we're very grateful and lucky to have him here. So thanks, Art, for all that you do for us. So my experience is slightly different. I've spent the last 30 years working in human resources, talent management, and organization development. And I was always drawn to organizations where there are challenging people problems. And so as a result, working in HR, it's more industry agnostic, if you will. So I had the ability to go lots of different places. I worked in entertainment, health insurance, automotive, lots of different financial services, lots of different types of industries. The last job I had before I joined Cedars-Sinai about 4.5 years ago, I was the chief people officer for a Fortune 200 company called HealthNet, health insurance provider based in Los Angeles, and we were acquired by another large organization. And in that process, it gave me a moment to stop and think about where did I want to spend the next part of my career and what did I want to do. I was very lucky. I received a call from a search firm about this job here at Cedars-Sinai. And as I began to, I certainly looked closely at the job because one, as a native Angelino, I knew the brand, the reputation of what Cedars-Sinai does in the world. Much more beyond. I think people think of Cedars-Sinai as the hospital to the stars, and that's not at all. When you look underneath the covers, it's not at all what we do. That's part of what we do, but a lot of what we do is about caring for very sick patients, and so I was really drawn to the mission. So our mission, similar to Art, was a thing that drew me here, and what keeps me engaged here over and over again. And I always remind myself, I was new to the organization. It was time for lunch. I was headed toward the cafeteria, and I was walking out toward the cafeteria, and I saw a family who was sitting there with a patient of ours, one of their family members, and the family member was very sick, and you can tell that they were probably at the end of their life. And this was one of the last moments that they were spending together as a family. And they were sitting in our healing gardens, so a place for family members to gather and to share time. And it struck me at that moment that what really energizes me is creating a work environment, a culture where it enables that stuff to happen. And when you just stop and think about, especially this past year, everything that's happened in the world, to be able to be part of an organization that lets a family say goodbye in a respectful, dignified, beautiful way, that's important. And so that's what drew me here. It's what continues to draw me here every day. And I say this a lot, but healthcare begins with heart. And that's why I'm drawn to what we do and feel very privileged to do this for Cedars-Sinai every day.
Beautiful. I love that. You both have made comment or talked about, especially when we first spoke, how important it is to support the Los Angeles community as a whole, and not just the patient population at Cedars-Sinai. So the question is, how have those efforts evolved and or expanded during the past year? And whoever wants to take it first.
I can start, and then I think Andy can certainly paint a really comprehensive picture about what we've been doing to take care of our people here at Cedars-Sinai, which has just been an enormous and an enormous challenge. You know what everyone is experiencing around the world and around the country and in the region has been, this enormous disruption, this dramatic change to how life is. People are experiencing, enormous tumult, hardship in many respects, and illness, and that illness has been widespread in some regions more than others. And we've just come through a period where there has been, a wave upon a surge here in Los Angeles. But if you think about the sweep of, a couple of weeks ago, we marked the 1-year anniversary of the first COVID patient at Cedars-Sinai. And we, as far as we know, we saw the first hospitalized COVID patient in Los Angeles County and a year ago. And it has just been remarkable how the world has changed over those 12 months. We at Cedars-Sinai, I think we immediately realized that the world not only was going to be changing, but there was going to be enormous need outside the walls of Cedars-Sinai. And so we've launched as part of our community engagement efforts, we launched a grant making effort that to date has given away just a little under $10 million focused on our COVID-19 response in the community around housing and homelessness, food insecurity, access to healthcare, and health equity. And we're very proud of that work, and that work continues. In addition to that, we've cared for more than 2,000 patients in house here at Cedars-Sinai and across our hospitals. Obviously, we're rolling out vaccine, not as quickly to our community as we would hope, and that's largely a function of supply. We're focused with lots of community partners on providing education to people in the community around issues like vaccine hesitancy and the flip side of that, vaccine acceptance. And finally, at the same time as we've been doing all of that and doing all of that work in the community and with patients around COVID, we've remained open and here for all kinds of care. And we've had to remind patients not to delay important care that's unrelated to COVID. We don't want a public health crisis of neglected cancer, neglected heart disease, and all kinds of other things to be lurking right behind COVID.
Well,
Thank you.
I'll build on Art's on what Art was saying. So, so much of my focus has been on our people. We have 15,000 people, and everyone on this webinar have heard all the incredible stories of the work that healthcare workers do every single day, caring for very sick patients. So that goes without saying, and we certainly have heard many of those stories. What really struck me about and how things have changed for me related to this and how we serve our employees is the impact that COVID has had on our employees in ways that I think people didn't expect. So yes, we have been able to keep our staff employed. So there are lots of things that we did in terms of pay protection and other kinds of things like that. Giving them, helping to support them in terms of childcare needs, that kind of stuff. But I think we didn't realize the impact that this was having on families. So yes, though one of our, so a nurse that works for us or a respiratory therapist who works for us might be employed, their spouse or their partner or whomever is at home may have been laid off. And so we didn't really understand how this was going to impact our staff in terms of, food insecurity, not being able to pay their rent, the basics that they had to care for themselves. So, we have placed a very big effort in that. We have luckily an employee emergency relief fund with, thanks to lots of, terrific people in our community that have donated to that fund. And we're able to help care for our employees, just even with the food insecurity issues. So that's stuff that we didn't expect to be in the business of.
Mhm.
You don't think about that, but the pandemic has really highlighted how many people, even those who are employed, are on the edge. And so, and never mind even the mental health issues. So that has really been highlighted for us as well, is how do we care for those people who are constantly having to care for, excuse me, patients who are very ill or have passed away. So the toll that takes on them emotionally, physically, psychologically has been great. So being able to respond in a way, to be proactive and try to respond to those needs has been really challenging. Again, I'm happy that we've been able to respond, but it's something that I just didn't expect a year ago.
Sure. Well, thank you for sharing, both of you. On to the next question. California and Los Angeles in particular has been the epicenter of the pandemic, as everyone knows. So this is a two-parter. What has been the most challenging moment during the crisis? And then for the second part, could you tell us a little bit about how you and Cedars-Sinai as a whole has been adapting during this period?
So I'll jump in to start us off. So I think, I think one of the things that certainly is highlighted for me, and maybe I'll start with our second question. And I know, there's so many stories that have been told about this across the country in the evening news and the newspaper about how businesses have had to adapt. And I think that's very true for us too. There have been lots of things on our list of things to do as an organization that we always say, nah, we can't do that. So even this notion of remote workers, there was no way in heck that 25% of our workforce would be able to be remote and to be productive and to operate that way in a very quick way. And because of the health orders, we did it in a matter of days, and we're able to respond. We regularly ask survey questions of those remote workers to find out their satisfaction, how things are going. Do they have the tools and resources to do their jobs effectively? And we found that we have done a very good job. So that's one of the things that I think has really changed a lot here, is that we can actually change and be adaptable faster than we ever thought we could. And nothing has proved that, highlights that greater than certainly this pandemic.
Absolutely.
So I think for me, to go back to the first question, the most challenge, there have been lots of challenges and challenges upon challenges during this crisis. But for me, I think that the most challenging thing goes back to the beginning of the crisis, when we really didn't know a lot. I mean, you talk about decision making with imperfect information. I mean, we were decision making with virtually, no information, and we had to make, lots of decisions, very quickly about workforce deployment, about, infection control, everything about, how to best optimize the outpouring of generosity from the community, which has just been remarkable, but how to optimize that and make sure that we were using that generosity wisely, really across the institution. There was really no area, and I think about our Andy and my senior colleagues around the table when we meet now virtually. Everyone was having to pivot on a dime, as he described, and really do so with at best imperfect information. And I think that every challenge that we've had since then, including that December, January wave on the surge, which was really, really tough and really challenging. All of that pales in comparison to the early days where we had no insight to what was around the corner.
Sure.
And so, so for me, that was probably the most challenging moment.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
I'll add one quick thing to that too. I realized I didn't go back and answer the first question. And then sorry, Art, if I cut you off on your second. But on that first question around the challenge, it's I think the greatest challenge was, how do we respond to these employees that are taking care of people who may be on a ventilator for 3 weeks, and you're hoping that they're going to get better, and they don't, and they die. So there's a huge amount of emotional investment that our healthcare workers provide every single day to these patients. And after working so hard, helping to try to get them better, when those patients end up ultimately passing, those are the moments when I talk to those nurses, when I talk to those physicians, and I see in their eyes and I hear what they're expressing. Those are the moments where I think, like, holy crap, like, how on earth are we going to help support them, and how are they going to get through this, and how are we going to get through this as a community? And so those are the times where I felt like it was really scary. And when I hear from senior clinicians who do this as a career and take care of sick patients, when they would say to me, in private, that they were scared, that really resonated with me. And I thought, like, we really are in a crisis moment, particularly in this last surge during the months of December. That was a really scary time for us here.
I can imagine. Thank you for sharing again. On a more personal level, excuse me, gentlemen, is there anything that you two have learned as leaders during the past year or so? A new skill, a mindset, or strategy that you see yourself continue using to guide you and your teams once the pandemic ends?
Well, putting aside that I have become more technologically independent than I ever was before. I used to, rely on the crutches of the very good people in the office who work with me to help me, and I could, just kind of be in this pattern of learned helplessness. I've had to figure out stuff for myself, which has been great. Putting that aside, I think for me it's really been probably two things, and one really kind of goes back to a point Andy made a couple of beats ago. But the first thing is that it was a reminder for everyone, I think, at Cedars-Sinai, top to bottom and across the breadth of the organization, that we are a mission-driven organization. It's unless you're living through it, it's hard to describe how singular everyone's focus has been on caring for our community and the region and the world beyond it right now. And whether you're a researcher working on some aspect of a therapeutic that could help the world deal with this, or you're the person in the parking kiosk helping someone who's scared have their first point of contact into the organization, and everything in between. Everyone is singularly mission focused at this moment in time, and it's hard to imagine that we'll be able to keep that flame lit the way that it is right now, kind of post pandemic. But I hope that we're going to be able to at least draw on that well of mission focus and mission orientation going forward.
Awesome.
And just the second thing is, I think we all learn to be adaptive much faster, and that's Andy's point, than we ever had to before. We had to drive change fast, and that's something, though, that I really hope and expect, and I've told my team that I expect us to continue to be as nimble as we proved that we could be once we hit post-pandemic.
Awesome.
Yep. I'll add, build on what Art just said. So, there are many great things about Cedars-Sinai. One of them is many of our frontline managers want us to, they're looking for direction from us. And they want us to be able to give them a formulaic, response that, so if we determine it, let me give you a concrete example. If we're trying to make a decision about whether a job can be remote long-term, they want a formula where they can answer 3 or 4 questions and then they hit enter and the response at the end is, oh yes, this is a remote worker, or this is a hybrid worker, or no, this is someone that needs to be on site all the time. So I think that our frontline managers have been looking for that. And part of what I've been saying is, no, this is the leadership challenge in front of all of us. We're going to have to use our best information that we have. Oftentimes, to Art's point, not a lot of information. We're going to have to use whatever information we have and use our best judgment in order to make decisions about leading our people. So that has been, one thing that I'm hoping will stick with us beyond this is how do we continue to empower our frontline leaders to trust themselves, to trust that they have what is required to be able to make these difficult, challenging decisions, and to do that in a way that will be in the best interest of the organization and our community and our patients. And then lastly, yes, like Art, I'm very, I have an amazing executive assistant who helps me every single day. And I'm proud of myself that I know how to log into a Zoom meeting by myself, and I can mute myself and start the video by myself and do things. I still haven't mastered how you turn the dings off so that when you're on a call, and Lauren has tried to train me at least 47 times. And so it just might be a learning block that I will never achieve. I'm hoping to achieve that someday soon.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys. Before we jump into the Q&A, just some quick rapid fire here, a little bit more fun to get to know you guys. So we'll start with Art. What is the single best thing, in your opinion, about working remotely?
More lunches with my wife.
Awesome. Andy?
I did not work remotely.
Oh, well, never mind. Next question, and this does apply to both of you. First vacation destination you'll go to?
Cabo.
Cabo?
He's got Cabo. I've got France.
Gotcha. One more, and then we'll move on to Q&A. Favorite LA sports team?
Rams.
I got a new quarterback.
Yeah, we do.
Dodgers, or for my Spanish speaking friends, the Doyers.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, into the Q&A, our first question, gentlemen, is are you, either of you or both of you, actively participating in your local ERG? If so, what are you bringing to the table? Influences, resources, funds? Yeah,
it's a great question. So I'll jump in on that. So when I joined Cedars-Sinai 4.5 years ago, priority for me was to bring the diversity lens to what we do as an organization. We had informal employee resource groups. We had a veterans group. We had some folks that would meet very informally. We are just this year rolling out a structured ERG plan. So our hope is, and this is very timely, we just had a update meeting yesterday. Our first ERGs will be launching by the April-May timeframe of this year. So, similar to how other ERGs operate, there'll be structure and process and leadership behind it. in addition to having some monies to help fund those. And we've taken, we've got some unique groups that want to meet. So we have our Black doctors who want to get together and meet. We have our Latino physicians who want to get together and meet and form, bonds and relationships. So we're open to all the groups that are interested in being part of our ERGs, and we're happy to launch them officially in the April-May timeframe.
Awesome. Art, do you have anything to add?
I think Andy said it all. I'm
Great,
just happy to
great.
support that great work.
Awesome. Another question we have here is what has been the most important non-financial reward employees have appreciated? I'm assuming during the pandemic.
Non-financial. I think there are a few things. So one is, as Art mentioned, we have a very wonderful community that we serve, and we have very generous donors, and so it's everything from, I think what people have appreciated is everything from food delivery, so pizza in the emergency room to providing lunch and support to people who can't get away because they're caring for patients. So it's that. And I would also say one of the things that certainly moves most of the people around here, because we're so mission driven, are the handwritten letters and drawings that we receive from patients and children. There's always something that comes in the mail from a 5-year-old who draws a picture of a nurse taking care of a patient. And that 5-year-old will write, a quick note of thank you. So that, I think, has been very moving, and I think has reinforced why so many healthcare workers continue doing what they do.
And from my perspective, I think that's absolutely right. And from my perspective, I would say, I think about my own teams and the development, the marketing and communications, and in the community engagement areas. Most of them are not involved in direct clinical care. And so for them, the non-tangible reward, the biggest non-tangible reward has really been that feeling of deeply, deeply participating in mission, deeply, deeply pulling together as one team with our clinical colleagues. And over and over again, they have said, they've never felt, it's never been clearer to them than it is in this moment, why they're here, what they're doing has such important impact.
Awesome. Okay, on to the next question. This is it's part statement, part question. This is a remarkable teaching opportunity, especially for those who mentor younger professionals. How can mentors really leverage this time for maximum mentoring / teaching opportunities? Second part, have you guys mentored people during COVID-19? If so, why was it so important for you to continue mentoring younger professionals throughout the pandemic?
Yeah, I'll jump in. It's so funny. I remember, at one point in my career being the person, being the mentee, and somehow I became an old person. And I don't know exactly how that happened or when that happened, but now all of a sudden I'm the mentor, and maybe the gray hair, kind of speaks for itself. But I think the mentoring process is so important, in particular for not only for everyone, but in particular for Hispanic or Latino up and comers and people that want to have a career in healthcare. There are a few people in particular that have reached out to me that work for Cedars. One person who's on my team, and some people who aren't on my team. And what I really find interesting and rewarding is how, when I joined the organization 4.5 years ago, the number of Latino employees that would say to me things like, "It's so great to have someone that looks like us, on the senior team." So that I think is important, and the importance of building a diverse pipeline, the importance of placing people of color, women and people of color in important visible roles in the organization. But mentoring, I think, is critical. It's really a lifeblood of the organization because it keeps things moving and rolling, and it helps to develop people to to achieve new things in their career. And it really is kind of a pay it forward thing.
Sure.
I didn't get here on my own. I got here because someone trusted me. And I still remember my first, big job where someone said to me, and I appreciated her candor. She said, "You actually don't have all the requirements for the job, but I think you have a lot of potential, and I want to give you this opportunity." It was a Latina woman. She was a lawyer by training, and she wanted me to go to the next level in my career, and she helped to provide that opportunity for me. So it's
Awesome.
important for me to do that for others too.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a common through line. If you talk to most people who have had some degree of success in their professional career, not only will you find a mentor or more than one behind that success, but you'll also find, to Andy's last point, you'll find at least one person willing to give somebody a chance to make a big career leap and career jump. And I think having a mentor, helping to advise somebody about how and when to ask for that, how to best position yourself for that leap of faith is really critical. I have always tried, ever since I realized, just like Andy, wait a minute, when did I become old enough to be a mentor? I've always tried to try to pay it forward, and at any given time, I've got a couple of people that I'm talking to and connecting with. I don't know that I formally think about it as a mentorship, in a classically defined sense of the word, but there are always a handful of people that I'm giving advice to and talking about their careers with, and trying to point them in the right direction where I and help them identify opportunities and prepare for interviews and prepare to make the most of those opportunities that they have.
Absolutely.
Hey, James, can I just
yes, please.
one quick thing to add to this? So I think the mentoring component is important, and for everyone on this call, I hope that we all also remember that we who people that say, "Oh, gee, you reached a certain level of success in your career," that we all still need growth and development too. So I know I don't want to speak for Art, but I know for me, I can't do this job without reaching out to my own mentor. So I have a friend, colleague who used to be my boss, one point in my career. He's now retired, and I still regularly call him and say, like, what do I do in this situation? This is a really difficult thing. And he's always there to listen and help. So I think it's important that we know you never get to a certain point in your career where you also don't need that too.
Sure.
So it's important for all of us to continue.
And that's very true, right? And I certainly have someone like that in my life as well, who's a former professor and a good friend, and someone who will tell me the truth even if I don't want to hear it. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of a good mentor-mentee relationship.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I want to say thank you. Very much enjoyed this conversation. Hopefully, once this pandemic's over, if you're ever in Chicago, you got to look me up, get a coffee or a beer or whatever.
Pizza.
Pizza. There you go. Turn it back to Vianney to wrap us all up here.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. I think that is all the time we have for today. Thank you, James, for moderating this discussion. And a big thank you to you, Art and Andy, for your openness today, your authenticity. I can tell you've been working together for many years, and we just want to thank you again for your time. So again, we're here to tell the stories of every Latino business leader out there, right? Every challenge, every success. So if you're interested in being a part of this, becoming a panelist, a host, a sponsor, or just having us tell your story, please reach out to us after today's event. Just a quick logistical piece, this replay will be available after the event. It will be shared with you. Again, in the meantime, we hope to see you soon. Stay healthy out there, be well, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye now.